Well, hello there, you ravishing human being, you. I'm Chris from TechSpert. Today, we're checking out the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro. This skinny wee beast comes in 14-inch and 16-inch flavours, and both of them are stuffed full of juicy Intel Core Ultra goodness, despite their slim and light design. But is Samsung's laptop a worthy alternative to the Macbook Air for creators and gamers who are constantly sodding off all over the place? Well, I've been testing it out for a good few days now, so here's my full Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now first up, the model I've been testing is the 14-incher, and certainly if you are travelling about a lot, you want something that's as compact and lightweight as possible, this will definitely do the job. Weighs just 1.23 kilos, and look at how bloody skinny the thing is. This is easily a match for the likes of the MacBook Air. But if you fancy a bit more screen space instead, you could also grab the Galaxy Book 4 Pro in 16 inches. That one weighs about 1.5 kilos. Of course, if you're familiar with Samsung's laptops, the design won't exactly shock you. It is very similar to the previous generation. We're talking no nonsense, simple styling as usual. You've got a matte, brushed metal chassis, which does still get a wee bit fingerprinty, but a quick buffing up and it looks box fresh again. But it's solidly constructed, certainly feels like it would put up with a fair bit of punishment. Minimal creakiness when you're really giving it some. And as you can see there, certainly no bigger than it needs to be. That display is surrounded by incredibly skinny bezels. Basically fills the inside of that lid. And as for your colour options, well, you could grab the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro in either silver or grey. Be still my throbbing loins. As for the port situation, well, that's basically the same as the previous generation. Once again, you've got a pair of Thunderbolt 4 ports stuck away over on the left edge. You've also got yourself a solitary Type A USB 3.2 on the opposite edge. And that's stuck there right alongside a micro SD memory card slot. And then last up, over on that left edge again, you've got an HDMI 2.1 port. Now, when you want to jump into action with your Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro, well, thankfully you've got a fingerprint sensor built into that power button. So as you can see there, you can be straight in like a second. And thankfully I've had zero jip from this thing. Even when my fingers are quite moist, it still has no problem reading my print. It only really struggles if you've got truly sticky digits. And as always with Samsung, your biometrics and other sensitive data are all stored in a separate security chip to keep them as safe as possible. And I'm certainly a fan of Samsung's Galaxy Book 4 Pro keyboard. Even though this is a dinky 14-inch laptop and the keyboard doesn't quite stretch the full width of that chassis even, I still found that the keys were perfectly positioned and well spaced, and overall this was a comfortable keyboard to touch type on. You've even got a double row enter key, although yes, the cursor key is all squidged up in the corner as usual. Not much travel as you'd expect from something this skinny, but there's certainly enough to give you a good bit of feedback every time you strike a key. And you've got 3 levels of backlight in here. It's certainly not the most powerful laptop keyboard backlighting I've ever seen, but it's certainly more than good enough for a late night grind. Actually, that sounds all kinds of, I should probably rephrase that. And yeah, touchpad's a decent size, pretty responsive. It doesn't suck, basically, which is all you can ask for in a touchpad. So now let's have a bit of a squint at the Galaxy Book 4 Pro's display. As I mentioned before, this is the 14-inch model. Both the 14 and the 16-incher sport a Dynamic AMOLED 2X display of Samsung's own creation. So as you'd imagine, it is a bit of a stunner. Got a 3K resolution, 2880 by 1800 pixels, so every picture, video, whatever you are staring at is absolutely pin sharp. As always with Samsung, it's a really bright, vibrant, poppy panel, so those colours really slap when you're watching more vivid fare, bit of animation, something like that. But as usual, you do have a number of different colour profiles that you can choose between. It's on auto by default. You can also match it up to the likes of the sRGB gamut, the Adobe RGB, P3. That's as long as you've got HDR switched off though, of course, because otherwise you've only got the Samsung AMOLED profile, that's it. And with the HDR active, you can expect stunning contrast when you're streaming video on the likes of Netflix. Gorgeous deep blacks, crisp clean whites. And basically it's an excellent screen. And it's ideal for outdoors use as well. If I max out that brightness, it practically singes your retinas. Okay, maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but it's certainly more than bright enough for checking emails, messages, browsing the web, all that good stuff outdoors, even on a sunny day. And the anti-reflective surfacing works really well too, so I've dimmed the display down. And if I just twist it this way a wee bit, normally you get some piercing glare from these mighty studio lights. But as you can see there, it's really tempered. Reminds me of the display on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. In fact, it's once again Corning Gorilla Glass slapped on the Galaxy Book 4 Pro. I'm not sure if it's the exact same armor stuff that they slap on the phone, but it certainly does just as good a job. And yeah, you got full touchscreen controls here on the Galaxy Book 4 Pro, the 14-inch and that 16-incher. So you can poke and prod away if you don't particularly like the touchpad for whatever reason. Like I said, it doesn't really suck. As for the audio that's spaffed out by the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro, well, it's the same speaker setup as the previous generation, but a quad AKG action, dual 2-watt tweeters, dual 5-watt woofers. And again, impressive stuff for something this compact, this skinny. That audio is like a pneumatic drill straight to your soul. And today's episode is sponsored by beer. Beer, so good it doesn't even need a slogan. But if it did have a slogan, it would probably be, I love it in me. Coincidentally, the same slogan as your mum. Alright, again, a slight exaggeration there, but despite the fact the speaker grills are housed on the bottom end of this laptop, the audio comes through nice and crisp and clear. And it's certainly loud enough for enjoying a show or a movie or whatever, even if you're hot at work in a busy, noisy kitchen, or you got kids warbling in the background, performing their entire Sound of Music routine, whatever. And shoved away up here in this skinny bezel above the Galaxy Book 4 Pro's display, you've got yourself a basic 2-megapixel webcam, but it can capture full HD images. Certainly more than good enough for your Zoom in, your Microsoft Teams in, whatever way you communicate with your, I'm sure, absolutely wonderful colleagues. As you can see, they're not too bothered by strong backlighting or anything. And thanks to the Intel Smarts, you've got various AI-assisted camera shenanigans as well, including framing, and of course those obligatory background effects. And it's a dual mic arrangement here on the Galaxy Book 4 Pro, which again does a fantastic job of picking up your voice, even if you move a fair bit away from the laptop. So you don't even need to worry about plugging in a headset to sound nice and clear. If you can't be bothered with any of that, just use the built-in mics. And if you want a multicam style situation, you can also link your Samsung Galaxy smartphone to Windows here on the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro, and then use these cameras as an alternative webcam, if you can be bothered with all the faff, which frankly I can't. So now we come on to the juicy subject of performance, another area where the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro really impresses, because you've got an Intel Core Ultra 7 processor chucked in here, plus 16 gigs of RAM. My review model is the Ultra 7 155H, and of course you've got that built-in NPU, so you've got the AI-assisted camera features I showed you earlier. And of course, no dedicated GPU stuffed into that skinny chassis. What you've got instead is the integrated Intel Arc graphics. But is that good enough for your creative tasks, and how does the Galaxy Book 4 Pro handle a bit of gaming? Well, let's start with some hot benchmarking action for all you stats nerds. Geekbench spaffed out a single core score around 2,300-ish each time, and multi-core hit around 11,300-ish. And quite interesting results spaffed out by Cinebench. The first time I ran the multi-core CPU test, I got a score of 1,142,188. Pretty impressive stuff. And this was followed up in the second run with a slightly less impressive score of 479. Thus, I feel proven rather definitively that benchmarking most certainly is not a massive pot of boiling hot pish. But what about actual gaming? Well, I left the laptop plugged in and kept it on that best performance mode, and then I slapped on a good bit of the Resident Evil 3 reboot. Quite a demanding title, thought it would be a good test of those integrated graphics. So I kept it running at 2880 by 1800 pixels, the maximum possible resolution on this laptop with the recommended presets. That includes ray tracing switched off, the high texture quality, most features were switched on and maxed out. I gotta say, overall, the experience wasn't exactly what I would call creamy smooth. That frame rate certainly fluctuated at times, in particular those more open environments with lots of brain-chomping Tory voters shuffling about the place. But it was certainly playable and enjoyable too. All the same, I did dive into the game settings and switched it to the balanced preset. Kept it at the same resolution, and now the performance was absolutely flawless. Didn't see any judders, any noticeable drops in that frame rate at all. So, encouraged by this early performance on Resident Evil 3, I then booted up Forza and ran this at the same resolution with the high graphics settings enabled. And again, the Galaxy Book 4 Pro managed to maintain a pretty stable frame rate, locked at around 30 frames per second. That frame rate certainly looked fluid enough during the majority of my gaming time. There were the occasional little noticeable judders when I was absolutely smashing my way across the landscape, but overall another very impressive performance. I certainly didn't feel the need to dial down the graphics to get an even more fluid frame rate. And what's even more impressive is, even if you're gaming for over an hour, the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro remains nice and cool, and the cooling system is whisper quiet too. As for the more creative tasks, well, I tried editing a bit of 4K video using Samsung's Studio app, which comes built into this thing. Merrily slapped together one of my usual amateur efforts, and this ran absolutely fine until I tried running a 4K video picture-in-picture with another 4K video, at which point things certainly slowed down. And I found that editing photos using GIMP was a more responsive experience than with my MacBook Pro with M1 Max and 64 gigs of RAM. And my everyday experience with the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro absolutely fine as well. Only real issue I had was the occasional spot of jankiness when using Google Chrome. Sometimes it would judder a bit, become a little bit unresponsive just for a few seconds, but apart from that, it's perfectly behaved itself. Oh, and as for the storage, it's 512 gigs as standard, spread across dual SSD slots. Would have been good to have a terabyte, but again, this is a slim and light ultra portable, so kinda to be expected. As for the battery life, well, you can expect around 6 to 7 hours of serious action from a full charge here on the Galaxy Book 4 Pro. That's running lots of apps, loads of Chrome tabs on the go, downloading stuff in the background, the full works. If you're on a long journey trying to stay entertained, or you're just sacking off work for the day, well, you can expect roughly 8 hours of video streaming on a full charge. That's a slight improvement on the previous generation where you get around 7 hours of video action. And yes, that is with the screen brightness maxed out, the speakers bumped right up as well. And obviously if you're gaming on this thing, well, that will significantly impact the battery life too. And overall, not bad for, again, something that's this sort of size. At least it'll keep you going for pretty much a full working day, but you'll probably want to have some sort of adapter on you just in case. And there you have it, my lovelies. That in a tasty wee nutshell is my full final frank verdict on the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 laptop. And I certainly adore the performance of this thing. It is just an incremental update on the previous generation, of course, but the fact you've got that core ultra beefiness now means you can get a good bit of gaming on the go, run those creative tasks, whatever you need to do. And of course, it's so slim and light, you can bung it into basically any backpack going. So that's what I reckon. What do you guys think about the Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro? Your attempts, it'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do plug subscribe, ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a ruddy, wonderful rest of the week. Cheers, everyone. Love you.